Good afternoon, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. Come to you here on this Friday afternoon to do a book tag. This is going to be the middle grade book tag. And I thought, being a middle school teacher, this would be the perfect tag for me. And this book tag was originally made by Amanda at the Curly Reader. And I actually saw it over at Faith&Books and watched both of those and thought they were very interesting videos, very good takes on that. And I agreed with some things and I got different answers for others. And of course that goes to our particular taste, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's do first question on this tag is, what is the last middle grade book you read? Now, this was a little bit tricky. I know it sounds like a simple question. I could tell you the last one that I read was The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. It was a basketball book, all done in poetry that the middle school teachers, the English teachers, recommended me to read. They told me I'd love it, and I did. I really liked that book. It had actually a lot of deep themes running through it, deeper topics and themes that at first glance you might not pick up on it, but if you read it slow and kind of think about it, it's got some deep stuff in it. Anyway, the reason it became a difficult question is because I'm also my wife and I are also reading Little House on the Prairie to my 3-year-old, and but we're in the middle of that. We're not done with it. And then I am also, like, this weekend and into next week, we're going to be reading Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass with my middle school kids. I'm going to do videos of that, and we're going to go through that online. And so I consider that a middle grade book. And so that was why my question was tricky. But The Crossover was probably the last one that I read, that I could think of anyway. And so second question is, what is a middle grade book someone read to you as a child? And I very vividly remember 6th grade, Hatchet by Gary Paulson. That was an absolutely wonderful book. I loved it. It was a book about survival. Kid has a plane crash, and I think it crashed up in Canada, in a heavily wooded, secluded area, and he has to survive only using his hatchet. And that was a very, very good adventure story. I absolutely loved it, and made me fall in love with reading in middle school. So question number 3, what was your favorite middle grade book as a child? As I said, Hatchet by Gary Paulson. But if I had to come up with another answer, I would also say Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe was another book on survival about a guy who, let's see, what year was it? I can't even remember the year. Back in he was shipwrecked. Let me look here. Hang on. 1632 is when he was born, and so it would have been in the 1600s. He's shipwrecked on an island all by himself, and he stays there, has to figure out how to survive. Realizes that the only people who come to his island are the natives, who use his island for cannibalism. And so it's a book about survival and a book about trying to get back to society, back to civilization. And he makes a friend with somebody he may never have made a friend with in any other situation. But again, a book about survival. I was really big into that in middle school. So question number 4, what is your favorite middle grade book as an adult? Now, this one is a hard question because there are lots of great books out there. I was sitting there trying to think of some. One of them that came to mind was The Incredible Journey by Sheila Burnford, and absolutely loved that book. Read that one actually maybe a year or two ago. Reread that. That was an excellent book. But the one that really sticks out for me is Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I don't know, I love the story. My imagination runs wild when I read this. I've read it with my oldest daughter, who's going to be 17. She's 2nd grade, I think, and we went through the whole series. And now we're reading it with my 3-year-old. I imagine we'll reread it again later. But I just love the stories. And as an adult, I still love the stories. And that has always been a favorite of mine. So question number 5, who is your favorite middle grade author? Now, as a social studies teacher, I had to take this from a social studies point of view. And I picked out a couple because there's lots of good ones out there. You know, there's no right or wrong to this question. But in the classroom, I like a couple of them. I picked out 2 of them. Jean Fritz. And again, this is a small book, so maybe not a middle grade. This might be, you know, upper elementary. But she also has a ton of books out, history books out. I know I've got a couple of them in my classroom. One on Pocahontas. I have one on Benedict Arnold, and she's got lots of other ones, but she does an excellent job with social studies. Kids love to read her stuff. And then the other one that I picked out was Russell Friedman, who he's done a lot of good books. He did this one on Lincoln. He's got another one out that's on Lincoln and Frederick Douglass that I had at school, and excellent stuff. He does tough, you know, big subjects, but puts it on a kid's level. He's won, you know, the Newbery Award and several other, you know, these authors are, that they have been awarded, and justly so. I think they're very good, and the kids usually love them. Let's see here. Question number 6. What middle grade book do you think should be required reading in school? Wow. So this was a great question because I get to put my 2 cents in there, or 1 cent. I'll let you decide that. But I kind of went on, since I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I did one for each grade. And these are books that I use in my own classroom. And so for 6th grade, I did a book called Journey to Joburg. And the author's name is slipping my mind. I'll put it in the bottom of the screen here when all's said and done. But Journey to Joburg is about a couple of kids who their baby sister gets sick. They have to go to Johannesburg, find their mother, and it's right in the middle of apartheid. And they get to go from their countryside home, their rural home, to the big city, and they get to see racism firsthand. And they are African American, or not African American. They are South African kids, South African kids, and they get to see the black versus white and how the whites treated the blacks. And it is a excellent depiction of the negative, gross behaviors of a racist society at the time. And it's a great way for kids to learn about this. Not a great subject, just a great way to present it. And the kids usually like that book. And that's probably, it might even be a 4th, 5th grade level, but I use it with my 6th grade, and we do some other stuff to help tie into the story and help bring it along. My second one is Facing the Lion, and it is a memoir, autobiography book, and I'll put that author's name at the bottom of the screen as well. But it talks about a man from Kenya, and talks about his adventures growing up, and he was in the Maasai tribe, and Joseph Lomasale Lukatan, and I could be definitely not saying that name right. I think I'm close, but might not be spot on. That's the author's name, and he talks about his time growing up in the Maasai tribe and facing the lion, and talks about courage and doing what's right, and doing stuff for not just yourself, but for the world, for other people, and going out beyond yourself. And it's a really good story, a really good true story. And by the way, Journey to Joburg is a fictional story, historical fiction. Facing the Lion is nonfiction. It is a memoir / autobiography. And then the other one is another fiction book for the 8th grade. And actually I had 2 there also. Across 5 Aprils, which talks about the Civil War. We use this in, or the English class does, I guess. They use it with, when they teach their part of the Civil War. We have a big curricular unit where we combine English and social studies, and she teaches Civil War, I teach Civil War. She does it through the book Across 5 Aprils. and it takes it from 1861 all the way to the end of the war. And we typically in our classes, where I'm at in class and where she's at, usually blends perfectly towards the end of the school year. And the other book, and they actually read this one in, I think, 7th grade, is My Brother Sam is Dead. And it talks about the problems of families splitting up, loyalist versus patriot during the American Revolution. Excellent book heading into 8th grade when we talk about that early on in class. So those are my picks for books that I think should be required reading. I think they're great books. So what is your favorite middle grade book cover? And I picked a couple of them. First of all, Red Badge of Courage. And there's so many different varieties of this book, but they all have a depiction of a Civil War soldier, young, going into battle, typically carrying the flag into battle. And it's a great book about courage, but at the same time cowardice, and or being a coward. And it's just a wonderful book. It's a little bit harder to understand just because of the language for kids, but it was a great story. And then the other great book cover that I like is Robinson Crusoe again. And this is the book cover I always remember. It always gets my mind thinking. You know, he's in his goat skin outfit with his rifle, his buddy, the parrot, and he hasn't seen anybody for, I want to say years at this point. It's been a few years, and he finally finds a footstep. He's like, oh, whose footstep is this? You know, and it just gets your imagination running wild. I always loved this book cover. And every time I think of Robinson Crusoe, this is the cover I think of right here. So wonderful. Oh, and by the way, I love Robinson Crusoe. I've talked about this. I've got several copies up in the upper room. Here's another copy. This is like an 1899. It's got a little bit of a stain on it, but 1899 copy of Robinson Crusoe. And I've got several versions upstairs. Just a great book. I collect the book whenever I find it. So the last question on our list is, what is your favorite middle grade book to screen adaptation? Now this was a hard one, because I've just got several of them that popped in my head. The first one that popped in my head was Jeff Kinney's book Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Absolutely funny, hilarious. I laughed out loud when I read it, and it's got cartoon story throughout, and I absolutely loved it. And when they did the movie, it was clean. You don't see kids movies all that often that are clean anymore. You know, often they put innuendos and all that kind of stuff in there, and it's just like, man, you didn't have to do that. But in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, not only did they stick to the book pretty well, but it's clean, and it is funny. It is, I mean, laugh out loud funny. And then the other two books that I thought of were Old Yeller and When the Red Fern Grows. Awesome books, awesome movies. Matter of fact, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Where the Red Fern Grows. But it was my first year. I just got done with college, and I had like a month and a half or 2 months or so before I went to my summer job. And I was doing substitute teaching, and I went to a middle school in St. Joe, bigger middle school, and the teacher was gone, and they must have been reading this book, obviously, because she left the movie to watch. And we were watching that movie, and I'm not kidding, I was adult college, just graduated, and here I am at the end of the movie bawling in front of the kids. It was such a good tear-jerker movie at the end. Of course, you fall in love with the animals, and then the other one, I brought this one up earlier, but The Incredible Journey was absolutely a wonderful book made into a movie, and I don't care which movie, either the old one or the new one, they were both really good. I thought. Of course, I think it was Michael J. Fox in the movie, the new movie, that did the voiceover for Chance, I think was the dog's name, and just did a fabulous job. And the old one was wonderful. Anyway, those are my picks for the middle grade book tag. Thank you to Amanda at the Curly Reader, and thank you to Faith&Books for doing this. And Amanda did the original, and I saw it for the first time on Faith&Books. But they both did a great job. I enjoyed doing this. And BookTube, I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble a little bit about middle grade books. So until next time, have a great day.